So I've got an impossible job because I'd like to talk to you about what's happening to the children in this country, but I can't talk to you about what's happening because everything is done under secret courts. And the UK column newspaper already has 4 injunctions out to stop us telling you what's being done with the children. It's a good system, isn't it? You're doing something wrong, so you run a secret court and then you hide it. And I'll tell you a bit more about it. If this little pointer works, and we're not sure, doesn't seem to like it too much. Basically, in the picture, we've got our families looking a bit dejected, but behind them, things are going on very high level, and that's Portcullis House in Westminster, which is the new seat of power for our MPs. If you ever go in there, you'll find it quite interesting because you're surrounded by armed guards. Okay, this is the UK column, and the one on the left-hand front page is a new edition, which has been put together by Mike Robinson, who has recently joined us. He's been doing the website for a while, but to take some pressure off me, produced this edition, which has gone down extremely well. And I've decided to put Mandelson there because we had some tremendous information from Vladimir Bukovsky's researcher, Paulo, who exposes that we have Marxists in government. And that comes from Russian sources, it's not from just pure English sources. The moment our newspaper came on the streets, people began to talk to us about things going on. And one of the early ones that came up was stories about children. I didn't believe them initially because they sounded too far-fetched, until the first mother arrived in our offices carrying about 4 ring binders of documents, court documents, transcripts. And the story that unfolded, which I will touch on, was just incredible. And the crime which I've listed there, this is absolutely correct. False evidence, false documentation, perjury in court, bullying and threats by the judiciary, the police, the social services. Everything you can think of in order to put pressure on the parents. Can be the father, but very often they tend to go for the mother. Now, if anybody is sitting thinking, I am a social services person, or I am a policeman, etc., it's shades of grey. I am not standing here saying that everybody who works from social services is bad, and I'm not saying that for the police or the courts. However, the body of evidence says that within these public sectors, we now have criminal and corrupt activity on a very big scale, and it needs to be exposed, and pretty quickly. What are they doing? Well, basically, they're breaking up families. They're breaking up mums and dads. They're getting the children away from the parents. And when those children are away, they can be used for things. They can be used for drug testing. If they die as a result of an illness or circumstances in hospitals, then body parts are disappearing. And otherwise, they can go into a more or less a gulag system where they can be abused. And some of that came out on the BBC a while ago when a very brave lady spoke out about her abuse in a children's home where she was tied down and systematically raped. Although she's got the evidence, and other girls and boys who were abused have got the evidence, they cannot get justice. Because when they go to the police or they go to the social services or they go to the courts, their pathway to justice is blocked. And I mean blocked, totally and utterly. And in the last resort, threats will be used to get them to back down. Now, these are some of the statistics. I'm going to be thanking a man called Ian Joseph a bit later on, who's done a huge amount of work in a book, which I'll show you the cover of. So some statistics have come from him and some I've researched, but this is factual. 25,000 children a year are now disappearing into the system. And we ask why, and we ask what's happening, and we ask who are these people who are now more qualified to say how you should look after your children than you are. My 2 children are adult, so I've moved on a bit. But any of you who've got younger children or you've got grandchildren, I can tell you those children are not safe. It doesn't matter what school they go to. Social services in that area have the power to take those children if they so wish. Now, these are some of the headlines that we've had in the paper. I've only picked a few because there's so many. Social services being described as the Stasi, that's come up several times. The father who was asked to donate organs to his son, but he wasn't allowed to see his son at all. Even judges, and there are good judges out there, but they're pretty lacking in backbone, are talking about foul play. And then the two cases down at the bottom, we're starting to get into something very sinister, because people are now saying, you're really not bright enough to have children of your own. Who says? Who makes this decision? Because that was the start of the eugenics program, selective breeding. And for those of you that think eugenics came out of the Nazi Party, it didn't. It came out of the Tavistock Institute in London. It's a British problem, and it was exported to the Nazis. Now, the key thing, if we say who benefits, which is a great way to start a trial, it's pretty easy. Because everybody who touches a child who's taken away by social services is raking in the money. Legal profession tops. The industry of taking children into care, we know at the moment, is about £20 billion worth. Billion. £70,000 a day if an illegal team really gets stuck into it. £3,000 a day. Medical experts, therapists. And then we've got the homes, £7,000 a week. Now, a lot of morality disappears out the window pretty quickly when money appears. And in my opinion, linking huge payments of money with children is itself the start of a recipe for disaster. And yet, at the moment, we, the general public, are not told the detail. You don't read it in the newspapers, and the reason is that the newspapers are gagged, just like the UK column is. If you take it a step further, there have been targets in place where the government says to a local authority, we'll give you even more money if you can get more children put into care. So this is just a summary of the amounts paid to various councils for meeting their government set targets for adoption. And it's big money. If you're a county council or a city council and your budget is under pressure, to be able to take in £500,000 a year by putting children into the system is pretty easy picking. So we have now put a price on our children's heads. And if you think, and I'll keep stressing this, if you think because of your social position or your knowledge or your intelligence or because you're a good person that these people are not capable of taking your child away, you are absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. I'm sorry it's such a subject for 9 o'clock in the morning. But we need to deal with it, because if we don't, we've lost control of our society. Now, this is one of the key things with social services. They are a law unto themselves. So wherever they're situated, they've got their own links through local authorities and into government, and through the police, and through into the secret courts. And those courts are secret. The public is not allowed in. The press are not allowed in. And even though Mr. Straw was recently boasting that there would be more openness, he was actually cheating you, because what he was saying is there would be more openness on the decisions, not on how the court proceedings actually made those decisions. I think he lied. Try and think of it this way. We've got social services who've got tremendous power. They can take a human being away from its parents, and they can then hold that child totally away from family until the child is 18, by which case, in many cases, the child has been turned against their own parents, his own parents. Now, how can social services get away with this? Well, it's to do with the fact that they aren't accountable to any normal regime. So in the diagram there, we've got the fact that social services, even within a local authority, are not accountable to normal democratically elected councillors. In Neathport Talbot, which I'll mention later, I can tell you that councillors have tried to ask questions about a disgraceful incident with a young girl, and they've been told you're not entitled to know because of child and family confidentiality. So the people we elect as councillors to keep track on what's happening cannot penetrate their own social services. And if they do, very often the legal officer in the council will put them under pressure. And a common bullying tactic is that they then use the scrutiny committees and public standards in public office to put pressure on the councillors. How do I know this? Because of the cases that I've assisted with, but also due to the councillors talking to me. They hide directly behind the secrecy of the family courts. And those courts themselves can then be used to gag people. So you get too close to the truth, whoomph, in comes the injunction. What does an injunction look like? Well, I've got 4 sitting on my desk, but I can't show you because the injunction says that I'm not even allowed to show you the injunction, which puts me under a gagging order. But in the box with the red language is allegedly part of an injunction. I couldn't confirm that, of course. But do you get the idea? So a fairly nominal judge, a district judge, can come out with a gagging order which is UK-wide on every means there is of getting information out. TV, press, radio, pamphlets. And they mean what they say because people have been put in prison for trying to tell the story. So we've got a secret regime set up in the middle of our councils. It can take children, it does take children, and then when you try and expose it, or when the mothers try and expose it, you're in big trouble. But what I want to do is get you thinking broader, because when you read the articles in the paper, you say, well, they must have done something wrong. There must have been something wrong with the mother or the father, or, yeah, there's got to be something there. Well, I'm going to start to suggest to you, although in some cases there is something there, in other cases we are seeing this as part of something much bigger and much nastier. Now, I don't know whether you know about this, but children are to be data-based. And there's 3 basic databases. There's the contact point, there's a social services database, and there's going to be a special one for special elitist people, because we are heading for a dictatorship where there will be an elite, and then there'll be other people. So there's a special database for the children of MPs and celebrities, so that we don't get too close to their children. Fingerprinting in schools. How many know it's going on in your area? Can you put a hand up if you know? Well, you need to start digging because it's happening in all areas. Sometimes it's done as a game. Sometimes it's done through the mouse in the libraries. But 3 more schools in Plymouth this week are adopting fingerprints even for going into lessons. Now, even Nick Clegg, who's not a friend of mine because he doesn't tell the truth about the European Union, even he saw it was dangerous. And this was a statement he made in 2007 saying it was sinister. That's his words, sinister. Have you heard him speak out on it since then? No. Because the LibLab con means that all 3 major parties are helping to insert this type of thing into society.